Oh, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, welcome to another season of what happenings in the YouTube nihilistic son of a bitch community and fucktard debate room shit thing, room, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I'm tired. I had kind of a semi-failure day. I had to work on a car and couldn't get the bolts loose on the stupid thing I'm trying to fix, and bashed my hands all to pieces. Had to give up. So I only got half the job done. And yeah, it's just kind of discouraging. Failure sucks. And, you know, it's raining a little. Yeah, just damn. Anyway, that's not a proper video. That's just a stupid complaint. Yeah, kids. There's kids there too. Kids. Kids. There's a couple of hot chicks though, which is okay. And yeah, I don't really have anything to report, do I? Yeah, Stickam. I'll post the MP3. So before I post this video, I will put the MP3s together. What else will I do? That was an interesting evening. Really, it was weird even. So I was talking to one of these, nihilist, matters to you people. I hate that line now. It just makes me livid. Who's it matter to? Matters to you. Like that's what value is. We have to have the witness show up to say something bad is happening. For something bad to be happening. It's stupid. Anyway. That's probably enough. Piro later, so sort of interesting. Tiny Chat blew up a few times. It's kind of like Stickam in the old days. It's kind of buggy. But that's sort of nostalgic, actually. I ain't gonna complain. It works most of the time. Well, I'll complain, but I really shouldn't be. Anyway, yeah, so it's just kind of various little bits and pieces of stuff, and so it was a functional evening, and I was reasonably engaged, except I went totally insane a couple of times, which is demonstrating something. I have to admit that my psychology is getting a bit frayed at the edges. I'm getting a little tense, I'm tired of it kind of thing. Oh, there's a lot of weight in my pack. Tools. So, so I am conscious of that. It's like I am very stressed in a, vague, overall kind of way. And it just kind of, there's points where I just kind of blow up. I don't think I'll be kicking any babies or punching any women, but I can really see that I have some anger issues. And yeah, I gotta do some of this anger management stuff. Calm it down, turn it down a notch, try to play the game that we're playing here, and not try to assassinate anybody. Kind of thing. So anyway, I guess I'll go home. Yeah, so I'll go home, and maybe I'll add something to this video. We'll see. I'm just kind of tuckered. Whoa. So maybe we can just have a short what the fuck. But I'm sure when I turn the computer on and see what kind of bullshit is out there, I'll have something to say, maybe, possibly, about something. Maybe not. Yeah, it's just all little dramas, bullshit man drama, sort of drama anyway, some kind of just something, some kind of fight. And there's a heroin church, creepy crud, and you know, all the stuff that falls out from that because of the whatever you call the border lines drawn. Whose side are you on, you fucker, kind of stuff. I am kind of a, you know, I don't like people who are playing too many sides of the argument. I don't get that. I don't want that. I don't know how you do logic that way. You know. Yeah, you know. People reaching, you know, the same conclusion from different evidence. This doesn't make much sense. Not even different evidence, different conflicting pathways. There's conflicts here, legitimate ones, and they're substantial enough that we shouldn't be able to reach the same conclusion because our premises are so divergent. Yeah, something like that. So, that was a nice piece of moss there. That's some good moss. Yeah, I like to lie me down in there. So, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Alright, so till next time. And such and so forth. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll add a little bit more to the what the fuck, I guess. So anyway, I wasn't really making any interesting videos. Snake Plisskenus is almost unwatchable. It's all bullshit. Gray text is just same thing, nothing. I mean, no one's saying anything. Some of the comments in these videos are semi-interesting, though. You know, the anti-bullshit man thing. You know, he did a blog post. I don't know if I haven't read all of it yet. It's just more all this nonsense about who said what first and all this crap, and it's just crap. It's like he's allowed to respond to my thought experiment without just conceding the fact that yes, it's valid, and then going on to some thought experiment of his own. Instead, he thinks it's a proper critique of a thought experiment to have a completely different one in a completely bizarre and different context. And then he complains that somebody else would say, well, the logical implications of your non-interference philosophy is this circumstance with smallpox. I didn't say he said that. I said this is basically my implications was clear that the consequence of this non-intervention philosophy is just as troublesome. Because what about this circumstance? And what about this circumstance? I mean, this idea of equal competence is just impossible. If two people have two different definitions of reality, two different descriptions of reality, and they're in conflict, there's a problem there. They're both wrong, or one of them's wrong. And you have to resolve that. You just don't concede to it and say it's okay. And where do you go with this consent argument? If you're going to say there's some sort of social contract violation, some sort of injustice that's committed if I presume to know better than somebody else and impose my will on them because I think they're doing something totally destructive, self or otherwise, it doesn't really matter to me. If you rape yourself or you rape somebody else, I really don't see the difference. And people can rape themselves. They can rape their own interest pretty damn easily. So, I would bring up the example then, what about kids? There's lots of kids who I would argue are more intelligent than their moronic parents. So is it a grotesque injustice, a violation of justice, a crime that these parents are allowed to make decisions for these kids? Are you willing to define or describe that as a crime? Or that, do you have some test or some way of detecting what kind of knowledge is necessary for any conversation? I mean, who should decide whether somebody should go camping in the wilderness? Right? Maybe Albert Einstein thinks he's a very good camper, right? A very good driver kind of joke, Maybe Einstein thinks he's a very good camper. But, maybe somebody who's a little smarter and has been in the woods a while kind of knows, Albert, you got no chance at all. You're fucked. So don't pretend you know what you're doing. how are you going to decide who's right and who's wrong? And again, who's, you know, once you say that there's no line, that it's always wrong to violate somebody's individual autonomy, well, then where do you go? Because there's a ton of people who will do things very self-destructive, and so you're just sitting there and writing all of them off, writing all the harm they'll do to themselves. And again, the context of any thought experiment. If you're going to have a thought experiment that isolates the feeling organism from the existence of all of the feeling things, to do anything else but isolate a very narrow question, and there's no, then it's totally illegitimate, because we know that nobody lives in that environment. There are no rabbits floating in plastic bubbles. You only use rabbits floating in a plastic bubble in space to isolate, to use a thought experiment to isolate the idea of suffering itself, the general notion of suffering, so you can isolate it into one suffering thing and do a legitimate thought experiment. But you can't talk about the interaction between two individuals and a conflict between their judgment in isolation, because quite obviously you've already, even though you only have one man on an island, you obviously have another man who you're critiquing who's passing judgment on that island, on the life on that island. By anti-bullshit man's logic, if we flew through space and we found other life forms in space, we'd somehow be doing something unethical to make judgments about whether or not this thing's working or not, whether the balance is good enough. And all the asshole Earthlings would have to say is we want to. So if the Earthlings say we want to have nuclear bombs, we want to have war, the smarter aliens, the more experienced aliens, let's say, they don't even have to be smarter, just more experienced, should just fly home and say, okay, we're going to let them fuck each other. I don't think so. But anyway, and anyway, it's not even on the subject, to tell you the truth. It has really nothing to do with the fact that of my argument, which is when the story's all written, the only thing that's going to matter is how much you paid for these, in suffering, for what we consider our glory moments, these little moments where you hold up your sword and say, I win, and whether or not there was any kind of rational, reasonable price paid for what we considered our accomplishment or victory. And in my opinion, there can't possibly be victory in terms of the price being paid. And no man, I don't think, can rationally claim he can create victory in the world that exists, with the construct that consciousness is made out of. You're already losing as soon as you're conscious and speaking. You're already caught in a game to improve your circumstances, because that's the game. It's always crawling out of quicksand, and that's never a good idea. And it's only a delusion in your head, an illusion in your head, a mirage in your head, that there is a paradise you're going to get to, that there's water somewhere that's going to satisfy you and complete you. That's just the game the DNA's playing, to keep you chasing, to keep you moving that way through the sand like a snake or a worm. Anyway, enough of that. Yeah. Maybe I'll add another piece before I upload this. So MPPs, MP3 should be below. There should be one of them, I think. I had 3 that were like small, reasonable size, and somehow when I combined them, they turned into a monster file. So maybe I'll try to fix that, and if I fix that successfully, then there'll be one file. Yeah. And such. I'll look, see if I successfully. Yeah, I think I did. It looks like I was successful. Anyway, still a big file. 70 megs for MP3 is big, but it's like 6 hours worth anyway. Missing some bits, but most of it's there. Anyway, enough. Oh, okay, I think we'll finish up here. It's cleaned up a little. Anyway, Brett Keane is back. He did a video. Phantasm World, no, philosophical chess and game reality. Okay, and basically the premise is, the statement is that quite possibly this game of chess just doesn't matter. You know, the pieces disappear, things happen, blah blah blah. The end game is all over anyway. Nothing. And basically, it's this argument that some other people make that somehow it doesn't mean anything. And once something slides into history, it slides into history, and somehow we don't have to account for it as we contextualize life, as we understand it. I just don't see how the word even understand could even mean anything anymore, or contemplate, or conceptualize, or even model. It's part of the model. If you're going to model life in your head and understand what it does, you have to understand what it does for its lifetime. The little train that could, right? It had a history, it had a life of work, it did, and you don't just, on any one day, you don't deny it that context, you don't deny its function, and certainly once you retire something, you don't sit there and say it never was, it never did anything, it never had a history. We don't even let go of naval ships, we'll keep them for a long time just because of the history tied to them. We'll make memorials out of some, to recognize and appreciate the fact that it was significant, that it was a reality, it did happen. We'll say never forget because we know that it's important, that it needs to be remembered because it was a real thing, it happened in the real world, it had real meaning, it doesn't become nothing because it was in the past. That the suffering that was paid for everything I have doesn't mean nothing because it's in the past. It just means that there's a difference in time between now and then, but there's not a difference in experience. The experiences are the same, the feelings are the same, the consciousness is the same, the reality, this is all the same. All the important aspects of my current conscious existence, all of those properties were there then. So how could I say this experience means more because it's this one right now? Well, I don't think it does. The only thing that makes it mean anything is that this one is one that can be changed by conversation, and what we do and how we move and little silly things we might do will make a difference somehow. It'll trigger something, and like I could do that. And in some people's brains, that might do something to their brain, and might connect something to something else, and it somehow might make this sentence more important to them. Who knows? But anyway, I just can't contemplate how it can't mean anything. I can't rationally grip it. I can't intuitively grip it. I can't grip it with any part of what I call my understanding of the world to be able to negate the reality of it. I'm alive. I'm conscious. I'm feeling. These things are real things. They're not non-things. And because it goes into the past, because this video was made in the past, you're watching something that happened in the past, it just doesn't change the fact that it happened. It did happen. It was an event in the timeline, and you can't undo it. It's undoing doesn't, because something goes into the past, it isn't an undo button. It just isn't. Undoing is preventing. Undoing isn't sliding into the past. So anyway, I can't do anything with it. I mean, I'm conceding this is not a powerful argument explaining why you're completely out of your mind to draw this conclusion, because I can't really understand how you can even find a conclusion at all imaginable. So it's hard to refute a conclusion I can't even imagine. So I'm not saying I refuted you. I'm just saying you're not even coming close to giving me anything I can grab hold of here. I see no reason to negate reality. I see no reason to pretend I'm not alive, I'm not conscious, that I feel that these are all properties of reality, that they are happening. I see no evidence, no cause, nothing to say it doesn't happen. It isn't real. It's not an event. Yeah, I'm just like, I think religion is a more compelling argument, and I think religion is insane. So I don't know where, I can't tell you much. You're to the right of insanity from my perspective. Sorry.